Hey, this is John Samuel, the host of All Access with John Samuel, the show where we share the stories of entrepreneurs, leaders, and advocates who are improving the lives for people of all abilities. And today we have a special guest with Thomas Reid, the host of Read My Mind Radio, which is one of the coolest podcasts I've ever been on. And not only is he the host of this great podcast, he's also a sound and audio engineer. And I'm super excited to have him here today.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Thomas.
sir.
Oh man, I'm super excited to have you again. And as you know, there's always going to be some hiccups as you're doing production of shows. So I appreciate it. If there's anyone I can have this type of conversation with, it's you. Because when I heard your podcast, it really changed my whole perception on what I want to do in terms of sharing my story. Because I've shared my story on a lot of podcasts and but no one had ever been able to take my story and bring it to life the way that you have. And I would just love to learn more about how you do that and share that with our audience how you really take and transform stories and bring them to life using your own style.
Sure. Yeah. So I think some people make it easy, and to be totally honest with you, you made it a little bit easier because the way you told me your story, and so I was like, oh yes, this is an awesome story. Number one, but it was full of sound and texture, even when you were kind of telling it. So to me, that's always going to be the guide, right? Um, so what I like to do is to let the story sort of tell me what extra spice, if you will, that I want to kind of sprinkle on it, right? And so
Yeah.
that's the sound. So if we're talking about cityscapes or something, yeah, I might put a little bit of sound, and then that's going to make it sound like you're actually in a city, or hopefully give you that vibe,
Yeah.
right? Um, I'm a big music lover. I'm a big lover of hip hop,
Yeah.
so I apologetically use a lot of hip hop oriented beats. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
that's that. But because within those beats, I mean, there's a lot of different emotions in there, even though they're mainly hip hop, right? So they can be slow, they can make you feel a little melancholy, they can make you feel upbeat and hype. So I like to incorporate all of that stuff. And then there's, real things in the world. So there's so many different types of sounds. There's so, whether it be even clips, news clips, and
Yeah.
ambient sounds, there's so much things to put together to just enhance a story, but it always goes back to that story for me.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to go into this though, because like the way that when I heard your podcast, the way you're sharing your storytelling, it really sounded like you were a DJ sampling different pieces of, uh, like you said, you're pulling out beats, you're pulling out instrument, you're pulling out all of these things that I think a lot of people would not and don't typically associate to a podcast,
Yeah.
but you did it. It really kind of you sounded like a dance DJ, right? Like a pub DJ. That's what I really felt like you were doing. You were pulling out this stuff, and it amplified it. You pumped it up, like it really kind of got the story moving,
Yeah.
And but what really got you into this? How did you get your own kind of style in terms of this podcast?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna run with that one right there. I'm just telling you, I definitely am. But it actually makes sense because I guess my love for audio started when I was a bedroom DJ back in the day. Like
Yeah.
it never got beyond the bedroom, But that was when DJing was pretty expensive. There was the two turntables,
Yeah.
and you had to have two copies of vinyl. And that got pretty expensive for a 15, 16-year old,
Yeah.
with a paper route. So, but no, I mean, like I had a love of that and used to tinker with audio, and making pause tapes. And again, hip hop is all about, at least originally, it was all about sampling, right? That
Yeah.
was one of the main art forms, and taking pieces and remixing and all of that, right? So all those influences. So I don't think I ever consciously thought about it. You know,
Yeah.
the reason I went with a narrative approach podcast is because I don't think I'm a good extemporaneous sort of talker, right?
Oh, wow.
There's people who are really good at just kind of sitting down, having a conversation and keeping it flowing. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that because I didn't feel like very confident about that. Plus, I can clean up some of my idiosyncrasies, right? In the edit. So what you get, hopefully, like you said, maybe if I sound like a cool DJ, that's great. But there's a little makeup on it. So,
Oh,
but that's pretty much the influence for the podcast. And then it was really early on in vision loss. Vision loss was a big part of me getting back into audio because I wasn't doing that until I lost my vision. And where I used to sort of walk around with a video camera and taping my daughter at the time, my oldest,
yeah.
um, when when I lost my sight, I just had a newborn, so my second daughter, and
Yeah.
so it was like, wow, I want to capture some of these memories too, and a digital audio recorder was a way that I was able to do that, and getting back onto the computer after learning JAWS and whatnot gave me access to Goldwave, which was a single file editor at the time because that was the only thing that I could use. I didn't have access to a multi-track recording system. And eventually, I was producing audio for an advocacy organization, producing audio, like I said, just capturing stuff of my kids. And eventually, I started podcasting. I won a New Voice Scholarship to the by the Association of Independents in Radio,
Oh,
and
super
that gave
cool.
me an opportunity to go to the Third Coast Festival, and I made some connections there. Found out about a gateway radio reading service who was looking for original programming, specifically for blind people at that time because it's a radio reading service. And I started creating these pieces, had nowhere to put them, and I did have a blog since 2006.
Okay.
And so I decided, hey, I'll just put them on the blog. The name of the blog was Read My Mind.
Yeah.
So I put Read My Mind Radio.
Yeah.
It made sense to me, right? So, and eventually it sort of, I kept doing it, kept just sharing those pieces. And later on, I started expanding on it, telling my own story, and just, doing more and more sound design and just learning more and getting hopefully better. So,
Yeah. No, that's super cool. You touched on a couple things that I want to kind of unpack. One of them real quick, it resonated with me when you talked about losing your sight as as your second daughter was born. It's been interesting for me. I remember during my wedding with my wife, Nicole, and we were, talking about the photographers, and we're like, oh, we don't need a videographer. We'll be fine with the photographer. But what was interesting was, even though I was losing my sight, I never thought that I wouldn't be able to see the pictures. I guess I didn't think 5, even 2 years down the road, I wouldn't be able to see our wedding pictures.
mm,
And what really has stuck with me was like my father-in-law had like a little handy cam and was doing a couple videos, and that's my memories now,
yeah,
being able to hear
yeah,
our wedding, right? And so I really kind of regretted that we didn't have a videographer and did video or captured that sound so that I would be able to um, kind of just look back with my wife and the kids, and so as you talk about that now, my wife and we try to do a lot more videos with our kids so that I can hear and partake in the in those memories while everyone else is watching that. So that really resonates with me.
cool, yeah.
But the other thing that you kind of touched on was, you talked about your vision loss, and I'd really be interested in sharing why you share the stories that you do on your podcast. So could you go into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So, for me, when I lost my sight, and I lost my sight to cancer. So I had cancer as a child, retinoblastoma, lost my left eye, and then the radiation caused a second tumor when I was 35.
Hmm.
And so the both eyes had to be removed, one as an infant, one as an adult. So, there was like none of that question, right? None of that
Yeah.
struggle. It's done. It's it. This is what it is, right? Um, and information was a big piece of what helped me. But the biggest piece was probably meeting
Yeah.
other people who were also going through vision loss. And that was initially from an advocacy group that I became affiliated and helped find here, a local chapter. But we all met at a support group. And it was like, I went to a couple of these support group meetings at a Center for Vision Loss and met people around my age, people who were kind of, experiencing some of the same things, and people who had some of the same goals,
Yeah.
and that further expanded when I met folks from the Pennsylvania Council of the Blind. Now, again, my whole thing is to sort of give back in a way. It sounds a little corny. I'm not sure if I like that term, but I want to provide this sort of same thing, right? People. But what happens is that you have a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to meet others who are going through blindness because it's such a
Yeah.
low instance, right? And depending on where you live, you might not have access to that. So the podcast to me gives you access to that. It tells you these stories of people who are going through some of the things that you probably are, but
Yeah.
maybe you want to learn something, what they did, what worked for them, maybe it's inspiring in that really good way because these people went through the journey that you're on and they're going through the journey that you're on and they're just in a different place, but there might be something that you can take away from this conversation that is like, wait, this is possible for me because learning and meeting people who were doing all sorts of things, lawyers, tech guys,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, homemakers, whatever it is, it was like, wait, this isn't what I thought it was.
Yep.
And so that to me is so important. But again, it's not just for the person. I think about it for the family because, one of the things is like my wife was looking for a lot of information as well. And like, she told me one time, like, wow, I really wish I had your podcast, like when I was going through this. And so
Yep.
that was, that's powerful to me. So it's like, I think it's a great thing to share with people. And so it's really, it's a passion project, man. It means a lot to me. It's part of my personal advocacy work to do what I do. So
No, I love it, man. I mean, it really does. It really resonates with me as well because when I was going through it, I felt like I was alone, right?
yeah,
There's this moment of like I didn't know anyone else, and I thought I was the only person who was losing their sight. Or and you can and that feeling of loneliness is like it's terrible.
it's
But
awful.
when you realize that there are other people and they're crushing it, like you said, they're doing, they're lawyers, tech folks, they're homemakers, they're doing, there's a lot more out there, and you need that. And I think that helps build up the confidence and helps people uh, truly achieve their goals. So I appreciate you sharing the stories of other people, and I'm thankful that you're leveraging your talents and skills to do that because um, a lot of people may want to do it, but they're not as skilled as you because you truly are. And I told you right after I heard it, you truly are an artist. And I'm not just shitting you, man. This is like it
Yeah.
really is like it was just such a cool event. I keep using the word because it's hard for me to describe.
Right.
And but I really enjoyed it, and I hope that we can get other folks to hear your message. But where can people access the Read My Mind radio?
Yeah, so wherever you get podcasts, which is available everywhere. So, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all of those places, all your little podcatchers and all that stuff. So you can also go to Read My Mind, REID. Remember, that's like I spell my name,
Yep.
REID, R to the EID, readmymind.com. You can find everything there too. So.
That's awesome. And are you on social media or anything that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's a mistake or it is what it is, but I was using my own name as opposed to the podcast name. So, but people can follow me at TS Reid on Twitter. Again, TSREID. That's probably the main place to get me. I'm most active there. I am on Instagram, TReid99. I don't do that much there. And I'm on
Yeah.
Clubhouse, though. I'm definitely on Clubhouse if anybody's using that. Are you familiar with the Clubhouse
Yeah.
app? Yeah.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
started we did our first Clubhouse event last week, I think, Landry. Yeah, like last week or 2 weeks ago. And
Okay.
yeah, so we've been really trying to figure out how to do that. So yes, We should be doing this on Clubhouse as well.
You should. Have you followed? You got to follow the 15% room. Have you followed them?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the 15% room is a room. I'm an admin of it.
Okay.
And Adriana started the room, and it's the play on the fact that 15% of the world's population are people with disabilities. So it's a disability related club.
Okay.
And we're having things on Mondays, every Monday at 8. There's stuff on blindness that someone's doing. Lachi, she's doing on Thursday nights at 8. And just a bunch of topics, man. And people are starting their, smaller rooms, just having
Yeah.
conversations. So it's a growing thing. We probably got like a couple thousand people already
What?
on it. Yeah, man.
I love it.
And right now, if I could just send this shout out to, what we're trying to do is to spread the word about making Clubhouse more accessible.
Yep.
So we've been hollering about that.
Yeah.
We've got some things done. So, to a certain extent, some people heard, Clubhouse has heard, they're working on that. They made some changes, but we're asking, quite honestly, we would love to meet with them, with the team there, because we know how accessibility needs a commitment. And while they're doing stuff right now, they're improving, they're making some changes. What I'm not hearing is a commitment. And when I don't hear a commitment, I continue to worry every time an upgrade comes out. You know this, John.
Yeah.
Like next year at some time they forgot, or
Yep.
something gets broken, and then now we're out of the conversation, like literally out of the conversation. So what we want to hear is like, hey, we are committed to accessibility, and not just accessibility for people who are using voiceover. We're talking about the deaf community. We're talking about people with low vision. We're
Yep.
talking about people with dexterity issues, right? People who use voice control, because there's problems. Some of the same problems, I just found this out. Some of the same problems that we deal with as voiceover users impact people who use voice control,
Yep.
So we want to hear that commitment, and that's what we're sort of shooting for, and if we can get that, then I think that would be a great thing. There's a little progress happening, but I'm not one to get that excited about a little bit of progress. I want to hear commitment, and then I can just relax, because I just want to be a regular user. I don't want to be talking about accessibility all the time. I just want to use the product,
Yeah.
So.
Man. Dude, I forgot how much I can just keep going. I love it. I love it. I love it. But I know I'm definitely be checking out the 15% room on Clubhouse on Mondays at 8 and Thursdays at 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, Thursdays at 8. And then we have some other stuff, every in between, there's other things happening, but definitely look for the 15% club. I'm gonna follow you. Make sure I follow you over there. And it's in my profile. So if you can't find it, but it's the 15% club.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. And
yes, sir.
And we'll be listening to you.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you having me on here, man.
Thanks, Thomas.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.